with folks, so we can share with folks who aren't able to attend tonight, and they can get caught up on just some of the great groundwork that we're gaining. So just be mindful of the recording, and if you have a problem with recording, there's no problem. Just leave your camera off and use your microphone. But again, thank you all for coming tonight, and we're going to get started here shortly. So yeah, this is IJ Action General Member Meeting for February 2023. And for those of you who don't know, Initiate Justice mobilizes the power of people impacted by incarceration to advance progressive policies in California. And that's our mission statement. That's what we stand on. And we're going to be getting into some of the amazing work that we're doing at IJ Action. And we hope that you folks will take the opportunity to be involved. And for those who are already involved, that you dig deeper, bring more folks, and get further involved in the things that are taking place. So just a brief review of the agenda tonight. We're going to start with some welcomes and introductions. We'll move into member announcements, give some committee updates. We're going to review ACA 4, the Free the Vote 2024, which is our amazing policy that we introduced into the legislature last week. So really excited about that. Our wonderful policy advisor, Shervin, he's going to be giving a breakdown of ACA 4, not only the ACA 4, but also voting rights as it's impacted people in California, prisons and federal prisons from California. So it's going to be a great, a wonderful, informative presentation that he'll be giving. So please stick around and be a part of that conversation. We'll finish off with some updates about member training, and then we'll close out for the evening and give you all your evening back. So again, we're in store for a great night, and so happy to see so many people on the call tonight. We ask that you share out and let folks know that the space is open and they're more than welcome to attend. And we'll be speaking about how you can become a member and how you can be involved in this transformative work. So our February member announcements, we're going to get into that. And for our February new member shout out, we're going to be shouting out Constantine A, Dorothy C, Gabriel B, Elijah C, Leonard W, Marsha T, and N and H. So we want to welcome our new members, and also we like to take some time to commend folks who've attended new member orientation. That way they can maintain an active status and gain an active status. And for those members who've completed new member orientation, that is Emiliano C, Yolanda N, Dorothy C, KCV, and N and H. So N, he got right in there. Ian, he got right in there and went, straight from new member. He completed orientation. The next day, he was on it. So just great to see us growing, and we hope that folks continue to invite other organizers, other abolitionists, other like-minded folks, other disruptors into this space, so that way we can grow and we can extend the reach and the wonderful work that we're doing, and also be a more powerful advocacy organization. So we always want to take time to highlight our new members and folks who completed orientation. If you have any questions about orientation, you feel free to email me, J@IJAction. I'm sure one of my colleagues will drop my email in the chat, and I could answer questions about that and how I can get you linked into orientation. And also at IJ Action, we're completely about transparency. So we want to always take time to thank our members for their wonderful donations and contributions to the organization. This past month, we received $220 on 11 contributions from members such as yourself. So thank you all. And so also take this time to go over our member structure here at IJ Action, just for folks who are joining us for the first time. At IJ Action, we have two forms of membership. The first is supportive membership. And supportive members are folks who've completed their membership application and paid member dues, and they participate in meetings and committees whenever possible. The second form, and the form that we hope everyone here chooses, is active membership. And active members have completed their application, paid member dues, completed new member orientation. They commit to attending general monthly meetings like this one. They sign up for at least one committee and sign the member pledge. So of course, the differences between the membership structure is of course capacity. And we understand that some folks have capacity to be a part of, the organization and contribute. and very busy, living professional lives, children, everything else like that. We understand, and that's why we have that forum. Also, we have the active member, which is for folks who are just extremely committed, who want to really be hands-on and be a part of the work that's going on. And if you have capacity, we truly hope that you select the active membership, and we'll work with you through the things that are required and be a part of that process. So again, that will be me who will be a contact on that. So we ask that you please choose membership, and I'm sure we'll see that link in the chat for the membership application. And so next we'll move into our February committee updates. And I think I'll go ahead and start, since I am the chair of the Membership and Outreach Committee. So the Membership and Outreach Committee is responsible for new member recruitment. The committee also supports IJ Action endorsed candidates, organizes around IJ Action approved ballot measures, lead in community engagements such as the Get Out to Vote efforts, tabling at events and community spaces. We lead IJ Action's voter rights and education program. We engage community and assist people on parole with voter rights, voter education, and also registering to vote. And we support in the production and distribution of the IJ Action Voter Guide, as well as members have an opportunity to become community trainers. And so the Membership and Outreach Committee is a very intricate role here at IJ Action. Anything that involves community, anything that involves outreach, anything that involves bridging the gap, or being a part of what's taking place within communities and welcoming people into the organization is where the Membership and Outreach Committee is at. And so with that, we'd be more than happy to see more folks joining the committee and be a part of the things that we have going on there, as well as, again, that voter education and outreach program and being community trainers, which is a great accomplishment. And so Membership and Outreach Committee, some of the questions you might have is who can be on the Membership and Outreach Committee? And the answer to that is any IJ Action member can be a member of the Membership and Outreach Committee. Sorry, Membership and Organizing Committee. All you have to do is send a request or send me an email, and I will definitely get you added in to the listserv and advise you on when we have our meetings. You might also ask, why is this committee essential for the organization? And the reasons why is to increase membership, to build political power in California, to advance progressive policies, and to bring community members home ultimately. So that's what we're working toward, is to bring members home, to be great advocates, and also to help push those policies forward. That's going to help to change the political landscape in California. Our meeting times are the third Tuesday of each month from 6:30 to 7:30, same time slot. And again, we look forward to seeing more people join and more people being a part of what we have going on for Membership and Outreach Organizing Committee. So thank you. And with that, I'll pass it to my colleague, Emiliano, and he'll give the next update for the next committee.
Cool, thank you, Jay. Thank you all. This is Emiliano from Communications and Fundraising. We will be meeting March 2nd for our second Communications and Fundraising Committee meeting. It will be at 6:30 to 7:30 on Thursday, March 2nd. We have a lot of updates that are being updated as we speak around ACA 4. So we're getting our stuff together in that communications committee, and we'll have some great updates to share with you on March 2nd. We also have some other things coming down the pipe. I just look forward to seeing you all there. And if you haven't joined and want to become part of the Communications and Fundraising Committee, become a member today and sign up for our committee. Do you have anything else to add, Sherman?
No, I think you covered Emiliano. And again, now that ACA 4 has been introduced, and we'll do a deep dive on that later, now is the best time to join a committee, because we'll be actively working on our communications and fundraising around ACA 4 and all the other policy work that we do. So please get involved. Great way to do advocacy work around abolitionist issues.
Yeah, and big shout outs to those that came to Sacramento for the ACA 4 press conference. Man, it was amazing, and we got a lot of work to do. So I really hope that you guys get involved. Back to you, Jay.
Yeah, thank you, Emiliano. And that's definitely one thing that I want to take a second to actually highlight is that this is the perfect time to join committees for folks who are kind of wondering whether or not are to join or to increase involvement in committees, because this is the time where we will be coming out with actionable items for folks to be able to participate in. This is the time that we'll be able to schedule ledge visits. This is the time that we'll be able to inform folks on how to contact the representatives once ACA 4 is assigned to committees, and they will be able to give Me Too statements, also be able to testify on the legislation and why it's important and who it affects. And so this is the perfect time to be involved in the committee. If you ever had any questions as to why or why it's important, this is why. For these moments like this where legislations have been introduced and they are transformative in nature and can be effective to a lot of folks who are incarcerated, as well as those impacted by the injustice system in California. And so that said, we look forward to seeing more folks increasing involvement and expressing interest. And we're going to help to facilitate that. So with that, we'll move on to our next portion of the meeting tonight. And for the main talk around ACA 4, I'll pass it off to my colleague, Sherman. Thank you.
Appreciate you, Jay. It'll be myself and Taina going through ACA 4. So I'll go ahead and share my screen as we have a PowerPoint ready for y'all. Can everyone see? All right, so getting right into it. The agenda for this presentation is kind of laying the groundwork of where we are around voting rights for folks impacted by incarceration. Uplifting the work that has been done, such as on Prop 17, on AB 2466, a case law, League v. McPherson from 2006, and how that really kind of set the stage for where we are now to kind of complete the project and restoring voting rights for folks currently completing a prison sentence. And that's how we transition into HCA 4. We'll break down the bill, we'll break down the co-authors, the coalition members. We'll talk about that press conference that Jay mentioned that happened last Wednesday in Sacramento. And then, of course, we'll finish it up with next steps and how y'all can get involved in helping this landmark legislation get across the finish line. But first, to kind of center us, I want to share a few quotes around voting rights, kind of recognizing that, we're standing on the shoulders of work that's been done over decades and decades. We live in a country with very beautiful ideals, but those ideals have never been realized for everybody. And we all know the reasons why those disparities and inequities and institutional racism exists. But we've all been working within our communities to dismantle those oppressive systems for years. And so starting out here with a quote from MLK, where he says, "One has a moral responsibility to disobey unjust laws." Well, it's exactly what we're doing, because prison disenfranchisement is unjust, and we're all working to dismantle that unjust system. Going into the statement from Coretta Scott King, freedom and justice cannot be parceled out in pieces to suit political convenience. I don't believe you can stand for freedom for one group of people and deny it to others. That kind of speaks to the disparate system, we have here in California. We've enfranchised folks on parole, folks in county jails can vote, folks on probation can vote, but folks currently serving a sentence in state or federal prison can't. And that disparate system speaks to the injustices that are baked into the legal system that we know here in California. And last but not least, this last one really stood out to me from LBJ, where he said, "A man without a vote is a man without protection." Putting the gender-based language aside, we talk about how restoring voting rights is about reimagining public safety. When folks have voting rights, when they have that civic engagement, it's empowering. It's that strong connection to community. And that's what protection really looks like, where we're uplifting and empowering our communities instead of disenfranchising folks. So I wanted to kind of share these quotes to get us centered on the work that we're doing and the significance and importance of this work to restore voting rights. We recognize it as an inherent right, not a privilege. It's fundamental to a healthy democracy. And that's the work we're all doing to restore. So getting into the timeline of voting rights here in California, specifically for system impacted communities, it started out in 1974. There was an ACA called ACA 38 that passed the legislature. It became Proposition 10, and it specifically disenfranchised folks incarcerated in prison or on parole for a felony conviction. And it codified that language under Article 2, Section 4 of the state constitution. And for decades, the language was interpreted to be that way. It was specific to people on parole or in prison. Then in 2005, we had this cavalier conservative attorney general who said, nah, I think it applies to folks in county jails as well. And so thankfully, we had some strong advocates, League of Women Voters, ACLU, and others that challenged that interpretation. And they were able to get case law on the books that said, actually, folks serving time in county jails or on probation do have the right to vote. And that case law was set in 2006. A decade after that, with AB 2466, it clarified that folks who were serving a sentence in county jail for a felony conviction could also still vote. We'll get into the specifics around that in a little bit. Of course, 2020, Proposition 17, what used to be ACA 6, restoring voting rights for folks on parole. And then the work we're doing now, and that we will enact next year, which is ACA 4, to restore voting rights for folks in prison and finally dismantle that system. And one thing I want to mention, just about kind of the cosmic significance of this all, Proposition 10 in 1974, it was passed on November 5th. The election next year is also on November 5th. So it will be exactly 50 years to the day that we get rid of prison disenfranchisement. So we got the cosmos on our side. I don't know if anyone here, is spiritual, anything like that, but definitely shows that we got a lot of significance around the work that we're doing. Tina, would you want to add anything so far?
Nope. So far, I think you got it, Shervin. I think I was just going to ask if you could make it full screen. It's a little bit hard to see it, but I think that you've covered it from the history and the context to where we are now. It'll be wild if, on the 50th anniversary of the state of California removing the right to vote for people in prison, that we turn that around.
That's right. So getting into some of the specifics around that League of Women Voters case, as I mentioned, for many, many years, local district attorneys, local officials interpreted Article 2, Section 4 of the Constitution only applying to folks in state prison or on parole. But we had this conservative AG who in 2005 attempted to extend that to county jails. And we had some strong advocates challenge that in court, and they won, clarifying in case law and setting that important precedent that the restriction on voting does not apply to folks who are in county jail or on probation. Huge win. And then, as you all may remember, a few years after that, when the Supreme Court of the United States stepped in and mandated that California reduce its prison population, the state passed AB 109, the Realignment Act, that reclassified certain felony convictions and allowed folks to serve out the time for that conviction in county jail instead of in prison. And a few years after, we were able to get a bill passed, AB 2466, that clarified that those folks under AB 109 who were serving their sentence in county jail did have the right to vote. So this really speaks to the very, very disparate system we have, where if you're in county jail, you can vote. If you're on probation, you can vote. Tiny will talk about Prop 17, but we got that last piece of the puzzle that we still gotta fix, and that's what we're going to do with ACA 4. So I will. Oh, what's happening? There we go. I'll turn it over to Tanya to talk about ACA 6 and Prop 17.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Shervin, for all of that historical background. So clearly, we are standing on the shoulders of giants, many folks have come before us to be involved in this really important work around expanding our democracy in California to include people who are impacted by incarceration. But we've been doing this work for a little while too. I'm actually going to take it back a little bit further than what we have here on this slide, because this is also like relevant to what's been happening in the last couple of weeks. But I remember when I first started Initiate Justice back in 2016, I think it was like late 2016, early 2017, that I had a conversation with one of my friends who became a board member of Initiate Justice named Rasan Thomas, who is incarcerated at San Quentin. And he said, if you want to uplift the voices of people who are impacted by incarceration, you need to make sure that we have our right to vote restored. So after that conversation with Rasan, I was like, bet, we gonna do it. So that was back when like IJ had first started. We didn't have no money. I wasn't even getting paid as staff. But with a series of volunteers and people who are really committed to this work, we started collecting signatures in 2017, 2018 for a measure that was known as the Voting Restoration and Democracy Act of 2018. Now that measure, had it qualified for the 2018 ballot, would have restored voting rights for people in prison on parole. We needed like 1 million signatures. We got like 25,000, but that was 25,000 signatures that we got with no money. And when I mean no, I mean no money. It was 100% volunteer based. But what that effort did do was get us a little bit of attention in the California state legislature. So in late 2018, early 2019, Assemblymember Kevin McCarty reached out to us and said that he was willing to introduce an assembly constitutional amendment that was a little bit more limited than that and would restore voting rights for people on parole. So that is what we did. And that initiative became ACA 6. And we joined organizations like the ACLU, Anti-Recidivism Coalition, League of Women Voters, and came together and worked for the best part of 2 years to pass ACA 6 through the legislature. That same year, Initiate Justice published a really like groundbreaking report called Democracy Needs Everyone, where we surveyed about 1,000 people in prison and on parole to kind of like, you know, get the data and get like the actual information straight from people who are impacted by incarceration and ask them questions like, if your voting rights were restored, would you vote? Did you vote before you were incarcerated? What issue areas are important to you? And the outcome of that report revealed what we already know, which is that people who are impacted by incarceration, one, do want to vote and would probably vote at higher rates than the average person on the outside. Two, people impacted by incarceration want to feel like they're part of the community because they already are part of the community inside of prison, you know, going to school, completing programs and things like that. And they wanted to, you know, be part of a community on the outside too. And three, the report revealed that it would actually have a positive impact on public safety, with more than 3/4 of people responding saying that if they had the right to vote restored, they feel like it would help them stay out of prison. So this is some of the data here that we shared, that we're sharing some like big outcomes of the Democracy Needs Everyone report, showing that before folks were incarcerated, only 37% said that they voted. But they said if their voting rights were restored while they were in prison, 98% of them said that they would vote. For reasons why: they want to have a voice in society, they want to contribute positively to the community, they want to have a say in elected leadership. And then the issues they want to focus on are the issues that the average voter cares about: jobs in the economy, education, healthcare. Lots of survey respondents also indicated how important public safety is to them. So the Democracy Needs Everyone report was really instrumental in like uplifting the voices and experiences of people impacted by incarceration. And thanks to the advocacy that we did with Prop 17, that we did with the Democracy Needs Everyone report, we were able to pass ACA 6. And it was a huge, huge uphill battle that required several organizations co-sponsoring, many lobby days. We ended up getting bipartisan support in both houses. So both in the Assembly and the Senate, we were able to get at least one Republican to also vote in support. And it was a whirlwind. And I want to say that to say, maybe to like prepare us for a little bit in terms of what we have in store for us for ACA 4. One thing that I want to note about ACAs, which stands for Assembly Constitutional Amendment, they're a little bit different from bills, meaning that they don't have to go along the same legislative calendar as other bills do, which basically means they can be heard in committee at any time. They can be brought to the floor at any time. So in order for us to qualify for the ballot for November 2024, ACA 4 has between now and June of 2024 to make it out. So over the next, 17 months or so, it's going to be a lot of hurry up and wait. It's going to be a lot of unpredictability, and we're going to need everybody involved to help us make that happen. Like, for example, with ACA 6, it went to the elections committee in, I want to say, June of 2019, went to the appropriations committee in June, passed the assembly floor in late August. And then between September of 2019 and June of 2020, nothing happened. For 10 months or 9 months, like absolutely nothing happened. But we had to clear the Senate by June 25th. So no action was taken until June 16th. So in 9 days, we cleared the entire Senate. So we went to the Senate Elections Committee, Senate Appropriations Committee, Senate floor, all in 9 days. So say all that to say, it was stressful. It was a huge community effort. It took a lot of work around the narrative, around the legislation. We needed people power. We needed system impacted people calling their legislators and urging them to vote yes. And the same is going to be true with ACA 4. And then, but once we passed ACA 6, the work wasn't done. That just meant that we qualified for the ballot. And then we only had between June and November of 2020 to pass the ballot. So we very quickly had to form a ballot committee, had to raise money, had to bring on a campaign manager and, start paying for things like radio ads and stuff like that. So we had a completely different battle that we had to fight at that point. It was a grassroots effort. For the ballot committee, we raised less than $1 million. It was completely led by people who were impacted by incarceration. And despite the fact that we had such a low budget, Prop 17 passed by a higher margin than any other ballot proposition on the November 2020 ballot. It also got the second highest number of yes votes in the history of California ballot propositions. Only one ballot proposition in California's history got more yes votes than Prop 17. So that is how I know that we absolutely can do this in 2024. Clearly, it's going to be a different struggle because certain people might be okay with the idea of formerly incarcerated people voting and not with currently incarcerated people voting. So we have a lot of work to do with ACA 4 in the next year and a half or so to change the narrative, to push legislators to vote yes and be courageous, and at the same time, prepare for the ballot measure fight. Because once we clear the legislature, the fight is only beginning. We still need a majority of voters to vote yes on November 5th, 2024. So that being said, I'll pass it back to you, Shervin, to get into more details around ACA 4 and what we need to do next.
Appreciate you, Taina. Thanks for that grounding on the amazing work on ACA 6. And you're absolutely right. I mean, the overwhelming support for Prop 17 really makes a strong case for the fact that Californians want this. They see this as an inherent justice issue, and we're going to give it to them. So in January of this year, last month, our fearless leader, Assemblymember Isaac Bryan, introduced ACA 4, a state constitutional amendment to finally end prison disenfranchisement in its entirety. And once, not if, once it passes legislature, it'll be referred to the November 2024 general election ballot for voter approval. I know it's a little hard to read, but I included basically the entire bill. It's on the screen that y'all can see. So it's super straightforward, very simple, and that was intentional. We're trying to make it as seamless as possible for folks to get behind it. There's no hidden language, no weird changes, super straightforward. striking out the language that says people in prison can't vote and making it super clear that being in prison is not a disqualification from being an elector. What you're seeing here is the entirety of the bill, y'all. Any questions on this so far? Again, very, very straightforward, and that was intentional. All right, so the ACA 4 coalition, I mean, you know, for folks like Taina and others that were there with ACA 6, a lot of folks have been saying this coalition is even stronger. The press conference we'll get into a little bit later was even more impactful. We had so many amazing media hits. We just got a great group of people working together right out of the gate on this measure, and that's really boding well for success. And as Taina mentioned, we got the next 16, 17 months to get it across the finish line, at least in legislature, before that big fight begins. We already have a very powerful coalition of co-authors, from our principal co-authors like Isaac Bryan, some member Mia Bonta, ASM Corey Jackson, Ashkara, and Akila Weber. And then our co-authors like ASM Lori Wilson, Matt Haney, Tina McKinner, Josh Becker, and Senator Dave Cortez. So we have that bicameral, meaning in both houses, support so far, which really bodes well for the ACA. And like Taina mentioned, a lot of those same coalition members from ACA 6 have come back to the table to get ACA 4 across the finish line, such as yours truly, Initiative Justice Action, our sister C3, IJ, League of Women Voters of California, ACLU California Action, the Anti-Recidivism Coalition, National Lawyers Guild LA, the California Black Power Network, and the Ella Baker Center. So these coalition members and the co-authors are not set in stone. We're still gathering more co-authors, still gathering more coalition members. And as we go through this process, and especially as we get closer to the ballot measure, you know, we could have dozens and dozens of organizations supporting this, and we're going to need it to really build that groundswell of public support we're going to need to get this passed. So getting into the press conference, as was mentioned, it happened last Wednesday on the Capitol steps in Sacramento. You know, our entire coalition was there. Many of our co-authors were there. Many of our, several of our IJA members were there. Again, shout out to our IJA members who made the trek up to Sacramento. Appreciate you all. And then going back to that cosmic significance, you know, as Taina mentioned, it was Rasan who first reached out to Taina and said, we need to restore voting rights for folks impacted by incarceration. And literally on the day that he was released from San Quentin, that was the day of the press conference. So we got a lot of really beautiful, beautiful significance around this work, and really highlights how, you know, we're standing on the shoulders of giants, and we're going to set history. We're making history in the work we're doing now, and we're going to set history when we get this passed next November. You'll see here on the screen some photos from the event. You'll see Emiliano double fisting some posters, and also included some of the media hits we got. I know it's covered by Washington Post, covered by Cal Matters, by the AP, and many other outlets. And we're going to continue building that media presence to ensure everyone's aware of this bill and that we're controlling the messaging. That's going to be the most important thing here, is that we're controlling the messaging, not allowing it to be taken over by conservatives, by detractors, by our opposition, really defining this from a justice issue, from public safety issue, from a democracy reform issue. And so really happy that we've gotten some good press coverage so far, and I'll be working to build on that moving forward. And again, one more shout out to our IJA members who joined us in Sacramento last week. And, you know, also want to highlight how the press conference, you know, we had many, many speakers, including our board member, David Cruz, who's here with us, and many other impacted voices, coalition leaders, and of course, several of the our legislative co-authors as well. So in terms of next steps, you know, this is not finalized yet, but what we're really, really hoping for and pushing for behind the scenes is that ACA 4 follows the same process as ACA 6 in terms of committee referrals. So we're really pushing to get referrals only to the Elections Committee and Appropriations Committee. It has not been finalized yet. Again, we'll circle back once the committee referrals are finalized. And then when the referrals happen, then we'll start actually scheduling those committee hearings. Tentatively, it'll be sometime around late March into April. You know, we got some potential dates from ASM Brian's office today, but it'll be around that timeline. Again, still tentative, but likely late March into April will be when the committee hearings start. And that's when we're really going to be hitting the ground running and leaning on y'all as our membership to help push those advocacy efforts forward. You know, we'll be creating template letters. We've got some talking points and fact sheets that we'll be sharing with all of y'all. So you can reach out to your local assembly member, reach out to your local senator, and talk to them about why you think this bill is important. And please also include us. You know, if you want to reach out to your member, but may not know how to begin that process, what to say, what to share, please, please, please lean on us. We're here to be that support network so that y'all can be those effective advocates in your own districts and communities as well. And as Taina mentioned, again, ACAs do not follow the same timeline as standard bills. So we don't need to clear any certain committee by any certain date. We just need to clear the entire legislature by June of next year, so that we can qualify for the November 2024 general election ballot. So getting into the committees a little bit more, again, this is not finalized, but we're 99% sure and really hoping that we only get referrals to elections and appropriations. And you'll see here, you know, it's great to have our principal author be one of those committee chairs in Isaac Bryan with the Assembly Elections Committee. So, you know, we're golden there. And then from there, we'll go into the Appropriations Committee. Chris Holden is the chair. While he is not a co-author of ACA 4, he is a member of the Black Caucus. And from what we've heard from Isaac Bryan, Chris Holden is a supporter of the bill. So it definitely bodes well for us that the powerful Appropriations Committee chair is in support of ACA 4. And then, you know, once we clear the Assembly, going over to the Senate, you know, we have Stephen Glazer as chair of the Elections Committee, and then Anthony Portantino as chair of Appropriations. So there'll be some dynamics here as well, since both Chris Holden and Portantino are leaving the legislature at the end of this session. You know, Holden's running for a supervisor seat down here in LA, and Portantino's running for Congress down here in LA. So that might be one way we can kind of leverage our power as they're running for different seats and trying to establish their record on justice issues to really hopefully be able to use that to our advantage to get them to support this important measure. But again, you know, once the committee assignments are done, you know, you can just type in Assembly Elections Committee in Google or Senate Elections Committee in Google, look at the membership, and if your local rep happens to also be on these committees, that's a great way to reach out to them and say, hey, as an IJA member, I want to talk to you about ACA 4, and please invite us. Again, happy to share those talking points, prepare a script, and give you all the template letters that y'all need to be effective advocates. So please lean on us, rely on us. We're here to work collectively and collaboratively to get ACA 4 enacted. So I know we threw a lot of information at y'all in a pretty fast fashion. So we'll stop here and open it up for any questions or comments.
Yeah, we have approximately 15 minutes for questions and comments. If we don't get those, then we'll move it to something else. But basically, just letting folks know that there is ample amount of time for questions. So if you have questions, please feel free to ask, and you know, we'll answer it to the best of our ability. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to ask those questions and to be a part of the conversation.
And actually, before we go into the Q&A, I just wanted to add that within the coalition we're going to be scheduling like in-district visits. So we're going to be really strategic, and we're going to be targeting like which members we need to focus on to get their yes votes. So once we have our like list of targets together, that's why like when y'all sign up to be members, we ask who your assembly member and who your senators are, so we can know who lives in what district, and we'll be collaborating to set up in-district visits with everybody, but specifically like with our target members, because there will be some members who are probably going to vote yes regardless. So you don't have to work on them that hard, but it'll be nice to just give them a call and be like, hey, I'm in your district and I support this. Thank you for supporting this too. For the people who need to be moved, the strategy will be a little bit different, and you can collaborate closely with us. I know Jay's going to make this announcement at the end, but this is also like a great pitch for our legislative advocacy training this Thursday for members. So if you're not a member, become a member tonight, and then you can join us for our legislative advocacy training and pick up some skills. So sorry, Jay, I know I jumped the gun a little bit, but I feel like it made sense to say that right now.
No, that's okay. It's all good. You prepping them for the actual formal introduction and announcement.
I see a couple hands up too, Taylor and Sharon.
All right, thank you, everyone. My name is Taylor Hughes, pronouns he, him. Member here at IJ Action, of course. Also participated in the voter education training program. One quick question: I started having conversations about ACA 4 with family over the weekend. Very first protestation that I received was, all right, so wait, everybody in California federal, like everyone in prison, is going to get the voting right? Because quickly it turned around to, so IJ Action is really concerned with the rights of these particular types of offenders as well. So you're actually advocating for these particular types of offenders, right? And I can't help but think that, of course, like, argumentation is definitely going to be covered in our training program on Thursday. But I couldn't find anything in terms of language on the bill for ACA 4. As you said, it's very, very, very sutured, very straightforward, the language that's presently available. So I'm wondering, like, do we have any background information on what possible, additions to this amendment are going to be taking place? Anything that we could have armed to, of course, introduce this idea to our family members when we're starting to, kind of form these arguments internally and privately, and then also to kind of equip ourselves to present when we're in these legislative meetings, because the only thing that I can really think of to kind of like, argue against that assertion, which came up like immediately as soon as I was like, yo, we're trying to give people in prison the right to vote. Like, this is a huge thing. The only thing that I can really think of is that, in both our Constitution, although, as you said earlier, Shervin, our ideals are beautiful, both in our Constitution, 14th, 15th, 19th, 24th, and 26th Amendments, nothing really says overtly that, voting rights are inalienable and inexorable. These are rights that appear to be privileges in the language of our Constitution. And then same with the California Constitution, although it does say that all political power is inherent in the people, and that government is instituted for their protection, security, et cetera. It doesn't specifically state that, voting is an inexorable or inalienable right, which is why we need more voting power behind, our initiatives so that we can make it so, right? And that starts with getting everybody the right to vote. But still, what looms large for me is like, so like everybody is going, like everybody in prison is going to be able to vote. That was the main argument that I had thrown in my face this weekend.
Payne, after you.
Yeah, I have lots to say, so I'm gonna, try and keep it succinct. But one, to just like answer the direct question, yes, it is for everybody. There are no exclusions. There are no carve outs. Everybody who's incarcerated or state or federal prison would have their voting rights restored, period. Something that we didn't mention is that, similar to what we did with ACA 6, we are also going to have to introduce a companion bill that's going to clean up this language in the elections code as well. So it's written in the California state constitution that you can't vote if you're in prison. It's also in our state elections code that says that you can't vote if you're in prison. So the deadline to introduce bills is the end of this week. So by the end of this week, we'll have a bill number for that companion bill as well, which will have a little bit more specifics in terms of like what voting looks like and all of that stuff. We will be putting together community talking points. So you'll have like a document that you'll be able to access to help formulate like one, just like how to talk about the bill, like how to say what it does and what it doesn't do. And then like our top line messaging, something that we failed to mention is that we already did polling. So we already know like how well this issue stands with the voters. We already know what messages resonate well with voters. We already know what words to use and what words not to use. So we will have a collection of community talking points that we'll be ready to share with y'all before you're expected to talk to any legislator. But some things that I say in response to that comment of like, oh, so you're going to let everybody vote, which in the polling that we did was actually one of the stronger opposition messages. So that's probably an argument that we're going to get a lot. We say, you know, like democracy, like means like everybody, like in a free and fair democracy, like nobody should have their right to vote restricted, particularly in a country where voting rights have explicitly been tied to your race or to your gender. In California, Black folks account for between 5 and 6% of the population, but are 30% of the people incarcerated in state and federal prison. So this is an issue that is, you know, historically rooted in racism, racial injustice. And, you know, it's easy to cherry pick and pick like one person in prison who did a really terrible thing and say, I don't think that that person should have the right to vote. But if we're being really honest, I think there's a lot of people in the free world who I wouldn't want to vote. But in a democracy, you don't get to just be like the sole decider of who gets to vote and who doesn't vote because you don't like them or you don't like what they did. So yeah, at the end of the day, it comes back to principles of democracy. We have a flawed system of deciding who has the right to vote and who doesn't. Therefore, we need to end one of the final vestiges of slavery and of new Jim Crow and restore voting rights for people in prison. But I'm sure once we put the community talking points together, there'll be a lot more to say there as well. And Shervin, I don't know if you wanted to add anything to that.
I think you covered it.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo your sentiments, Tyne, and also, we also, always uplift intersectionality and the importance of it. And Tyne made amazing points. And yeah, some folks are just, going to have their particular opinions about certain segments, but intersectionality is key. And in a free and fair democracy, everyone's required, allowed to participate.
Sharon, please.
In the beginning of the writing, it said everyone will have the right to vote on parole, and for people who know that if you're on parole, you are LWOP, you can't vote. So I just hope that you change that word to everybody who's in prison rather than everybody on parole.
Sorry, was that a typo on the presentation?
In the writing here, yes, it's on there, right in the beginning.
Oh, well, just to clarify again, yeah, I'm not sure if there was a typo. But to clarify, if ACA 4 passes, it would restore voting rights to everybody in prison, regardless of their sentence. So that includes LWOP, folks on death row, regardless of the crime that was committed. It would restore voting rights to everybody. And then for Prop 17, it restored voting rights to everybody on parole, regardless of what the crime was. So there are no carve outs for your sentence.
And that's state and federal prison. And an important thing to note on that as well, last year, the legislature ended prison gerrymandering. So folks are no longer counted in the rural districts that many prisons are located. They're now counted based on their last known address prior to being incarcerated. So that's another way that we're fixing the problem of how our legal system, our policy system has disenfranchised and diluted Black and brown voices. Instead, by ending prison gerrymandering and now hopefully by getting ACA 4 passed, we're completely dismantling that system in which your status as a current or formerly incarcerated person takes away that right. That's going to go away.
And I saw that there was a question in the chat from Mariana saying, if your rep is already on the list, I'm in Tina's district, should we focus on senator or should we look to adopt someone else? If you live in the district of our principal author or any of the co-authors, I would definitely ask you to just like give them a call and say thank you. A lot of times like legislators, like they get, you know, bugged when you want them to do something, they get yelled at when they don't do what you want them to do, but they often don't get thanked. So I think if you can, you know, just give them a call and be like, hey, I'm a member of Initiate Justice or Initiate Justice Action, who's a co-sponsor of ACA 4, saw that you're a co-author and just want to say, like, as a constituent, like, I appreciate that. Because at the same time, like, one, it's nice for them to hear it, but two, it also gives them like political cover, right? Like, because sometimes it's a difficult decision because they're going to be getting a lot of, you know, people opposing their decision, calling them from the district as well. So if we can like even up some of those calls and say like, hey, we actually have a lot of support in our district for this, we're making the right decision, that's very helpful.
And going back to the talking points and various ways we can message this, you know, one other thing we found from the polling to be very effective is not only, and we did this from our own experiences as well, is uplifting those individual voices. You know, hearing folks like David and others at the press conference last week, it's just such powerful words and really speaks to the human element of why voting rights for everyone is so integral to the safety of our communities and to the power of our democracy. And we got moms and dads who are incarcerated who have kids in school. I mean, do we want to say those parents don't care about who's on the school board or who's on city council in their community? Of course they do, just like everybody else does. You know, we got folks who are veterans who are in prison. So these issues are super important. These are our community members, and really highlighting that messaging is going to be powerful as we're speaking to lawmakers and to people in the community. All right, not seeing any more questions. Jay, back to you.
Yeah, so again, thank you, Shervin, for your amazing report and presentation on the bills and how they will affect folks, as well as breaking down the just the intricacies of the legislative process and how it works. Again, I'm so excited to have this ACA be put through the legislature, and hopefully, well, when we get it through, we'll give the voters a chance to be able to have their opinions heard and to be able to codify this into law. And hopefully we pass with the same, if not a larger, window than we did with Prop 17. But all in all, there's ways that folks here and folks who are interested in being involved can get involved with the support for ACA 4. And some ways that you can do that, I'm going to drop it in the chat right here, is if you go to this website, I'm sorry. If you go to this website right here, which is CaliforniaFreeTheVote.org, you'll be able to tweet, set responses, as well as download images, copy posts, and subscribe to the Free the Vote email thread and listserv. And so that's one way that folks will be able to support. And, you know, that's our call to action for tonight, is that folks get involved by supporting with social media uplift, as well as be prepared for when the time comes to, you know, contact representatives, as we mentioned, or to thank representatives for the support, and as well as, you know, be a part of those lobbying visits and other things that we're going to have going on. So if you would please, you know, visit that website and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Also, you know, you could, like I said, send out some tweets and copy the content for your rest of your social media, Instagram, Facebook, and others. And again, just be prepared for what's to come with the once the bill is assigned to committees, and how that is going to work out. So we look forward to, you know, always getting members involved, having those impacted voices heard. That's the most effective strategy for organizing, as well as bill work within the legislature is something that we found out. And so we will always do our best to uplift members, to allow folks to tell their stories, and to be those effective advocates that Shervin mentioned earlier And the next thing is, as my my wonderful colleague Tanya mentioned earlier, this week on Thursday, we're going to be having our member exclusive training. And it's not by accident, but this month's training will be legislative advocacy. And of course, at IJ, we like to make sure that members are prepared and have all the tools that they need to be able to get into these spaces, to be effective, to be informed, and to feel confident when you're speaking with folks who are electeds as well as other professionals and people within these spaces. I know me myself, when I was first entering the space, I kind of felt nervous about meeting electeds. I felt nervous about going to the space and participating in these visits. But after I had my training and after being a part of the visits, I couldn't get enough, and I would constantly volunteer and sign up. And so that's the type of culture that we want to foster, where folks feel comfortable with speaking to elected officials, where you feel comfortable telling your story and telling your story powerfully, where you feel comfortable advocating for others, and you understand the counter narratives and other talking points is going to come, and you know how to respond. So if you want to be a part of trainings to just show how a bill works, how it's introduced, the legislative process, and other advocacy efforts, as well as how you can help out with ACAs and other political processes, please sign up for legislative advocacy if you are a member. If you are not a member, we will be dropping the link in the chat for the membership application, and you will have opportunity to become a member tonight or any other day. Just fill out the application. Once you fill out the application, you'll receive a email from myself confirming that I received it, as well as next steps to membership. So here it is. I'm going to drop it in the chat, just the links real quick for legislative advocacy, and we ask that folks please register for that training. Tonight is going to take a minute to register. If you already, not even a minute, if you're already a member, just go ahead and register there. And if you are again, if you have not become a member yet, there's no worry. We have plenty of space, and we'd love to have more like-minded folks a part of this amazing community. And I will drop that link in the chat as well. That's the second. That's the second link is for membership application. And yes, we just would like for folks to, again, get involved, have an opportunity to be as involved as you like, and to see this process move forward, as well as invest back into members, skills, and training and time that you all have given us in return. So thank you for that. And if there's nothing else, I think we might be able to give you a night back.
Well, I think I just want to say again, thank you to everybody for being here, for being part of this effort. And thank you to the folks who are here, who were part of the effort from the beginning. I know folks like Jay, like David, like Roberto were fighting for this, while they were still incarcerated, and are home, on the other side of the wall now, fighting for this issue. This is something that has been a priority for Initiate Justice, from the beginning, and we will continue to fight until we win. If you haven't already, please become a member of IJ Action so you can participate in our trainings. Also, we dropped the Free the Vote California website in there a couple of times. So visit that website, subscribe to the email list, and you can get updates directly from the coalition. And just stay tuned. We're going to be tracking this very closely. So any opportunity that there is for you all to help, we will make sure that you know. But again, thank you so much. Can't wait to restore voting rights for folks in prison.
Yes, and then so also I'll stay on for a couple minutes after the meeting. That way, if folks have any questions or something like that need to get lined out, I'll be here to answer some questions. But also feel free to email me with any questions regarding membership or trainings, anything like that, j@ijaction.org. And yeah, folks, you have a good night and enjoy your evening. And thank you for everyone who is involved in this fight and who's willing to be in the trenches to get it done. Let's go.
Thanks, everyone. Good night.
All right.
Good night, everybody, and thank you so much.
We will win.